do you think are some of the challenges that the Madani government is going to face? Because TMJ already said that when SOJ takes over, he's going to have a hard time. Today we're going to be talking about the revival of Johor economy. Yeah?
Yes, the special economic zone that was announced between Singapore and Malaysia, and also focusing very much on the Johor-Singapore ecosystem. This was, something that was follow on after the discussions between Johor and Malaysia on the Iskandar corridor side. So in Johor, that started, between Rafizi as the Minister for Economy and also On Hafiz as the MB for Johor, talking with the Minister for National Development, Desmond Lee, and also the Acting Transport Minister, Chee Hong Tat. But that was only for discussion with regards to the Iskandar corridor, right? Then this was escalated at a higher level to be part and parcel of the ministerial dialogue. MTI on Singapore side, MITI, of the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and then on Malaysia side, Rafizi's ministry, Ministry of Economy, to be able to put some ideas on the table as to what the MOU would entail with regards to some of the ideas. I shared an article with you where I actually gave 10 proposals on how to put more beef and more meat into this MOU with regards to ideas.
So before going into the details, right, of all these, I think it's for most of the public, when we talk about Johor, we all remember at one point in time, Iskandar Johor was like, whoa, the rah-rah hype, right?
Yep.
And then after that, it became a very quiet thing. And then we have a lot of questions, like, for example, Forest City, people were asking, like, what happened to it, right? And then Iskandar Development, what happened to it? Because at one point, it was so big that even we had a studio there, Pine Studio, I still remember.
Which has been sold.
Right, which has been sold. And then things only started catching on again lately with the
SEZ.
Yeah, and with the anticipation of SOJ, who's going to become our Agong. Yeah. So maybe it's good to give a background a little bit of this whole, how did this Iskandar corridor thing started developing, and what's the background of it?
So that was during Part last time. And these 4 different corridors, including the Northern Corridor, Eastern Corridor.
Maybe firstly, what's a corridor?
Corridor, I think basically means some sort of a special economic zone within a country, where there are certain entities that were established by Acts of Parliament, where they would have certain budget to do investment promotion and things of that nature.
Like free trade, like tax-free, those kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, no, tax incentives. Yeah, I think that there's quite a lot of overlap actually with what MIDA does. And the Prime Minister has also announced that in the National Committee on Investment meeting sometime this year, that MIDA would consolidate a lot of these investment promotion activities from the corridors, including in Iskandar. So that's something that I'm aware of since I'm a board member of MIDA. But going back to Iskandar, I actually think that Iskandar from a planning standpoint has had quite a lot of interesting selling points. And that, the Iskandar Regional Development Authority, they got a lot of ideas as a result of the investment of time and resources by Khazanah. Right, because Khazanah is one of the largest landowners there. This was land that was inherited from UEM. A lot of it was palm oil that was converted into residential, commercial, industrial development. So from a master planning standpoint, IRDA actually quite well thought out. So for example, I don't know whether you remember, there's education city.
Yes.
Right, so there's University of Reading, Southampton, Maritime University from Netherlands and whatnot. Right, so that is supposed to sort of like build up the education ecosystem. They're still there. Some doing better than others. I haven't been there in a while, so I think that ecosystem can be enhanced, especially if, let's say, we get more foreign students to come to Malaysia. But that's a separate story. So that's the education part. There's also the entertainment part. Legoland, Hello Kitty, which has closed down since. Right? I think Legoland is still surviving, but barely so. And then you have the part of the entertainment would include this Pine Studios. Pinewood Studios that has been sold to entity in Singapore, but their capital actually originally from China. So and then there's the
health hub.
The health hub. Not much going on there. There's supposed to be some sort of a services hub as well. Frost & Sullivan moved there, put in their sort of like a Malaysian and regional HQ. But I think they've had a problem maintaining staff there because the ecosystem is not very well developed. So, and then of course there's a property play lah. But
the famous forest city.
No,
Actually,
no.
so beautiful, eh? Yeah,
Okay,
I mean,
so-
the architecture-wise is so beautiful.
So I would say that there were property players involved in the IRDA ecosystem even before Forest City. You're talking about people like Sunway, SP Setia, all the major developers in Malaysia. They are there in Iskandar, but not in Forest City lah. So Forest City was a later addition, and I think definitely would have had some effect on the property ecosystem, created certain maybe questions that investors from Singapore and other places were asking. And it's not just Forest City. There were other big developments from Chinese developers in other parts of Johor Bahru as well. So I think this is part and parcel of the challenge that I think Sultan of Johor has also expressed interest in trying to resolve lah. Have you been to Forest City before?
I haven't been in Forest City, but I was at Iskandar in the early days of the development.
What was your impression then?
Oh, I thought it was like really beautiful. It was the
You go to Putri Harbour, that side?
Yes.
That's a
And
nice.
I visited around the Legoland Park,
Yes.
go and see properties, see how they actually were like refilling the land so that they can build out further some more. But there was always this lingering question, right, of will it really succeed? Because when we were looking at the development during the time, you're talking about really, really big scale.
Yep.
I recall it was about 300 over billion. That was the aim, right? Although by funding basis, it did achieve quite like 300 over.
Some, yeah.
But
Some
not
activity.
fully.
Yeah.
But the question is that the real activities that's going on,
Yeah.
it felt like there was no continuity. It kind of like after they finished selling all the property, then what's next? Then definitely because of that, there was this whole question that TMJ after they came out and say, hey, it is because of the federal government did not continue by pushing forward with this development or corridor.
Yeah. Let's leave the discussion of Forest City towards the end of the SEZ discussion first.
Yep.
Let's talk about, I think, the ideas that we can sort of like think about with regards to developing the economic ecosystem in Johor, especially southern Johor, together with Singapore. Right. So some people have said, this is Malaysia's Shenzhen story, Shenzhen,
Yep.
whereby you latch on to Shenzhen latched on to Hong Kong.
Hong Kong, like we latch on to Singapore lah.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
And I think that can be part of the narrative. And I think to make that happen, we need to have a few elements, which is what the article, 10 proposals that I wrote. So one of the first things, I think we need to improve physical connectivity to Singapore. We have the RTS, the sort of like rail system, the MRT system that will connect Johor Bahru with the Singapore MRT system.
Yep.
That will come in play around end of 2026 if there's no major delays. And that will actually be a game changer in terms of enhancing connectivity lah. But I think there are other things that we can do as well. So, this I give credit to Liu Chin Tong. A lot of good ideas coming from him. And he's also the MP for
He's the
Iskandar
MP for
Putri.
Iskandar, right?
So he's actually proposed, why not have a ferry connection, in between, let's say, either Forest City or Putri Harbour, connecting to Tuas.
Yes.
There's a Raffles Marina there.
I recall during the time when I visited many years back, it was already part of like the thing that they kind of like talked about, floating the idea already.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that depends on the appetite for Singapore to start the conversations with Malaysia on the transport side and then on the home affairs side because of security immigration. But I think that could be one connectivity. The other area that has been discussed before in the past that Chin Tong brought to my attention is going from Pasir Gudang to Changi. So Pasir Gudang is where a lot of industrial activity and also a lot of people live in Pasir Gudang and actually work in Singapore. This would be more from the B40 population, a lot of Malay workers there and also people from East Malaysia working in the factories and service sector in Singapore. If you can connect it by ferry to Changi, that also can be a win-win situation for Singapore as well because the Changi sort of like terminal at the southeastern tip, there's no big development plans there yet, right? So if let's say we can have a development agenda in Pasir Gudang that entails some sort of a ferry terminal that is enhanced and then connecting to Changi side. I think that would be a win-win situation for both people. And then just one more. This is an idea that was floated to me by somebody in the corporate sector lah.